2025 was a great year for haulers. You know what? Scratch that. It was a historic year for haulers. We got 3 that had not been released in a decade and a half. Absolutely wild things. If you had told me in 2024 that we're getting Jerry recycled batteries, we're getting Gil and Chet Boxcar, I would not have believed you. Now, granted, in 2017 in the Radiator Springs Classic line, they did do 5 of these 6 haulers as just the semi-cabs, deluxe semi-cabs without the trailers. And that's cool. That was really nice. They ended up being pretty rare. Did not do Oliver Light Load for whatever reason. But to do the full hauler, the full trailer here in 2025, 15 years removed from their releases in 2010, just boggles the mind. Something really impressive from Mattel, really out of left field in an era where we don't get much of that energy anymore. I mean, look at the rest of the releases. We don't see much from Cars 1, especially something that they're going that deep back into the bag for. So, pretty cool. Now, Paul Valdez, unfortunately, was not one of those haulers that got re-released, but 2026 lies ahead of us, and if Mattel continues that trend, maybe they will do Paul, Ben Crankleshaft, and Oliver Lightlow. There haven't been any haulers leaked or announced for 2026 that are new. We know we're getting re-releases of Jerry, Mac, Cruz's hauler, Jackson Storm's hauler, and obviously the Marty Walmart Next Gen hauler, but nothing new. I would assume they will do something new. I would be kind of surprised if they just stopped and halted all the momentum they built up in 2025, but I guess that would be in character what Mattel's been doing lately. But anyways, welcome into Forlorn Favorites here. This is chapter 47. Now, unlike Ben Crankleshaft, Oliver Lightload, and Chet Boxcar, Paul Valdez does not appear at the top-down truck stop. He is much later on in the film where they're showing how literally everyone on the planet is tuning into this 3-way tiebreaker piston cup race at the LA Speedway. This is also where Mr. Gill shows up, and that custom red pickup truck that I had done, Anthony Rodaka is what we named him. And yeah, they were very accurate to the movie, as you can see here, by including the oil can that Paul is sipping on. I always found this to be an extremely odd decision. Mattel did not have to do this by any stretch of the imagination. They kind of went above and beyond. But it wasn't as hard as we might all think, because that bottom piece is plastic. It's a mouth plate. It's interchangeable. All of these, Chet, Jerry, and Paul, share the same semi-cab Peterbilt thinner mold, but they have their unique models because those are easily switched out, being that plastic piece. They also all have unique expressions, which is pretty great. They all have the side view mirror here that's kind of dangling, that's misaligned. Oh, I guess Chet does not, but Jerry and Paul do. I'm honestly shocked that Chet does not. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. But Paul nor Chet have the Peterbilt logo there on or just above the grill like Jerry does, which makes sense considering it's actually shouted out in the movie that Jerry is a Peterbilt. Now, what I always also found interesting is that the following year, Paul was a late 2010 release, and then 2011 came around, and about around summertime when Cars 2 debuted, they did Tom Bay Sipping Oil pretty much simultaneously with the regular Tom Bay and the 2-pack with Finn McMissile. Now, Tom Bay doesn't appear in the movie Sipping Oil. It's actually a deleted scene along with, that Mater with the spyglass. That's another deleted scene that made it out as a diecast. Really cool. These two have really nothing in common, but somehow they have everything in common. The only two cars, attached to an accessory like this, sipping out of an oil can on their right sides, like very strange. They're different sizes and everything, but I had to show you guys that comparison, something that, people don't think about anymore. Tom Bay, I would contend is a very forlorn character. Him and Rod Torque Redline deserve re-releases, and yeah, you'll never be able to convince me otherwise. I love those two, and it's a shame how much they've been shafted over the last 10 years, really. Tombay's last release being in 2016. Rod's goes back further than that. But yeah, Paul's looking up at the screen of the TV, I would assume, and he's just enjoying his motor oil here. I actually have, a couple of these custom cans from Got Frank. If you guys remember that name, back in the OG days of, the Tapatalk forums and whatnot. He did some tremendous customs, did a bunch of the buildings. In fact, pretty much all the buildings that Mattel didn't do, and then a bunch of accessory type items like that. He never was one to do a car from scratch, right? He's not going to do that. I think he did maybe a hair or two of them, but he was more environment, right? And I think that's what made him special. But anyways, I also love that he's kind of got the stubble. It's almost like the stubble of a beard here. The asphalt dirt grindings up on his bumper there looks really good. Kind of bland here on the front. You have the spot for the Peterbilt logo, but just being blank. You do have the lights here on the sides being silver, whereas with Jerry and Chet, they are yellow. Also kind of strange. PV on his cap there. Not sure what that stands for. I mean, is he really that full of himself to put his initials on his own hat, on his own visor there? I guess so. Paul Valdez. Pretty cool. You got the white stripe, which is very iconic and kind of, very much so a sign of the times. Like a lot of these semi-cabs would have something like that. I mean, Gil has similar stripes as well. Like the dirt detailing on the wheels and those barrels there, those fuel barrels. He has the iconic ML115 license plate. And I say iconic because Mattel used this on over a dozen different characters during this 2009, 2010. And I think it actually then bled up into 2015, 16 when they did some new Cars 1 characters. I would not be surprised if Kim Carlin's has this license plate. I could be totally wrong on that, but think about some other Cars 1 characters that they released during that time. Brad Windmiller, Darla Vanderson, one of those might have this ML115 license plate, but it pops up a lot. And yeah, that's something that we complained about from Mattel way back in the day, and yet now that's a mistake I think we would gladly take to have a new character. If every new character had that same license plate, I'd be okay with it. I just want a new character at this point. Not something that we're looking to be getting anytime soon, which is very sad to say. But it's true. It is unfortunately true. So that is the diecast. The only part that really is diecast is, where my thumb is right there, because the hat, the bumper, smokestacks, all this here is plastic. But, that is just kind of, what happens when you get a trailer or a hauler. Here is the trailer, which is all plastic. Probably some of the most lackluster details, except for Gil, who's just a solid green. Everyone else has some sort of logo on their trailer. We obviously know Jerry Recycled Batteries does. I don't know what this says up here. It starts with a T. It's like Tremiller or something. Not sure what that says. Or no, that might just say trailer, actually. And then you got some very realistic looking numbers and other text. So what I've loved about the haulers, they make these trailers look so realistic. If we saw this out of context, we would not think it belongs with the Pixar movie Cars. It doesn't look animated at all, especially here on the back. This looks like something I drive behind, unfortunately, in real life, right? The detailing of the grime, the grit, looks phenomenal. Again, you have the ML115 license plate there. Pretty much a copy-paste here on the other side. Yeah, they're very consistent with the detailing, up here, down below. Even this part of the trailer's nicely designed, which is something you don't see much, being directly behind the semi-cab. The roof dirtied up, not just a clean white. And yeah, let's crack him open here. I'm pretty sure, yep, he opens from this side. So everything else is realistic except for how he opens up. I want to be careful here. I don't want to break anything. I mean, this guy is 15 years old, going on 16 years old at this point, so we got to be gentle. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I guess these are spark plugs, actually. Yeah, just a bunch of crates, bright orange crates of spark plugs. It's also dirtied up in there. I like how the edges are cleaner because probably don't get as much, like they don't put as much stuff up there, and there's probably also less traffic. You know, the car, I guess we're canonizing, a car is going to come in here off of some sort of ramp, which we don't have a ramp, but I guess there's a external ramp connected to this. Car drives up and pulls off, or pitties, I guess. I think forklifts is what would be actually transporting the cargo on and off of the truck, and they're driving in that center part, dirtying it up, but along the walls, not as dirty, not as many vehicles driving there. So makes sense to me. Lots of space here. You could put a whole bunch of stuff in here if you wanted to. You could probably fit, you know, McQueen. Actually have a new factory custom Lightning McQueen that we could test. Cars 3 Apple Lightning McQueen. So yeah, he could slide in there. You can maybe even get, no, not quite, but you could get like Luigi or Guido in there for sure. And yeah, closes. Perfect. Beautiful. Let's hope now I can get him open. This back hinge is what's really the hard one to release. But we got it. And there you have it. Paul Valdez. Never found this trailer, this hauler, in a store. I think my mom got it for me for Christmas or something. So shout out, Mom. The only haulers that I was able to find out of this grouping was Jerry and Gil because they were released in 2009. Haulers in 2010 pretty much passed like the Mood Springs Vinyl Toupee Shifty Drug case. Impossible to find. Distributed horribly. But now, 2025, Jerry, Chet, Gil, all pretty reasonable to find. We will see if Mattel carries the tradition of these haulers on into 2026. I think it would make sense, given the 20th anniversary, to release some nostalgic Cars 1 releases, some characters. I think Oliver and Ben would go absolutely crazy, ungodly. People would go nuts, especially for Ben. Oliver too. But Oliver, the semi-cab just isn't as fun. I mean, Ben is just such a girthy semi-cab. What the hell am I talking about at this point? Guys, thanks so much for watching this installment in Forlorn Favorites. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye now.